Rachel is, in her heart, always going to be a cast member. And she had the incredible opportunity of being chosen as one of the college program cast members. And then not only that, but as she progressed within her Disney job experience, she did open Star Wars as one of the very select people, and I'm sure we would all have liked to be part of that. Now, as we all know, the pandemic happened, and unfortunately, 30,000 cast members had to find other opportunities out there, and Rachel was one of those. But that didn't stop her. So what she did is she researched and honed her job search and interview process and all those skills, and wants to share that with you in this workshop so that you can have success in your life and find a job and opportunities, whatever it may be. So any little bit that you can take from this hopefully will help you on your journey to finding the job of your dream. So today we've had our first workshop, and that was basically, the whole job search process and how to get there. The focus today is more on the interview process and some of the tips and techniques that can be used to up your chances of getting that job. So now, and her journey has been from Disney to Legoland to other jobs and now at Geico. But, she truly is a cast member, and she always will be a cast member. Just like, we're honorary, we're all cast members, and we all come together to help each other. So with that, I want to give the opportunity and the lecture over to the virtual lecture over to Rachel Lee, who will guide us today and teach us all that she has learned. So help me welcome Rachel Lee to the virtual lectern.
My name is Rachel. I was a cast member back in 2019, where I opened Star Wars Galaxy's Edge on my Disney College program, working in merchandise. And I could talk your guys' ears off about that opportunity, but we're going to hold on that for now. I did intend to come back in the fall of 2020, do another college program then, but anyone who's cast knows how well that worked out, and I decided I wanted to stay in Florida. I didn't want to move back home after I just moved down here, so I started job hunting, and I've been bouncing around. In May of 2020, I did graduate with my degree in business management, and I figured that would have helped me in my job search process. Turns out the rules are a lot different when you're in the middle of a global pandemic, but I've had a wide variety of jobs ever since then, just kind of bouncing around trying to make sure that the bills get paid and all of that. And just this week, I actually started a new job working in internet customer service with Geico, which is a very incredible opportunity because I get to be using my degree and doing work that I love, enjoy, and am earning pretty good money. And so I'm very excited about that opportunity, and I hope that some of the things I'm going to tell you about today will help you guys reach that same point, whatever it be for you. A few quick housekeeping things. You are more than welcome to keep your video on. You're also welcome to turn it off. Oscar exempted. I promise I'm not staring at you guys, just like picking you apart as I'm doing this speech, so don't feel like I'm making eye contact directly with you. I'm staring at my camera or myself, so don't worry about that. And also, we do ask that you keep your microphone off so that way we don't have to worry about background distractions. And like I say in every meeting where I'm leading things, if you guys don't want to hear my voice, step up and then you can hear your own voice. But like Oscar mentioned, our first seminar series was about writing your resume and your cover letter. So having a good foundation to start the job hunting process. And this week, we're going to tell you guys about how to actually start hunting. That means how to find job postings, how to go about sorting through all of the job postings, and then how to actually start applying to those job postings. And there's a lot of information, so hold on tight, guys. Here we go. I'm telling you guys today about the where, the what, and the how of job hunting. Raise your hand if you remember when job hunting was going to a physical location and filling out a piece of paper with all of your information to apply. Yeah, don't worry, that's not quite outdated yet. In my job hunt this last summer, I went around to different places and filled out physical applications because I was so determined to find a job that I just walked up and I'm like, hello, please hire me. But a lot of job hunting now is predominantly done online through online applications. And especially with the pandemic going on, everything from the application to the interview to the offer is done online. For my current job, I did not go into the office until my first day because everything was done either via my computer or via my phone. So finding a job is a lot different than it was even 20 years ago, back in the 90s. Terrifying thought to have. There's a large variety of places to find job options. There's specific job sites, so um, websites where employers will post their jobs that they're looking to hire for, and it accumulates all them together. There's word of mouth. There's just communication from friends and family members and contacts. They'll say, hey, my job is hiring. There's social media where companies will post on their page or create sponsored posts that they're hiring, and a lot more than that. As you're looking through the different job postings and different job places, you always want to keep an open mind, but at the same time, double check yourself. You want to be sure that these places are credible. So if a post seems a little bit sketchy and it doesn't feel like it's from the actual company, keep an eye out because it might not be, and you don't want to give away any personal information to something that's trying to trick or scam you. You want to be sure that the website itself is trustworthy. Cough, cough, Craigslist. I do not recommend looking for any sort of something on Craigslist, not out of personal experience, but a lot of research done on my part. And if you're on social media or you're looking through some of these job hunting sites, you do want to make sure that the posts are trustworthy. A lot of scam companies are able to put out sponsored posts that look like real companies. So you always want to double check the links you're clicking on or the companies you're looking for, whether it be just a cross Google search or looking at the company's actual website rather than just clicking on the link provided. Internet safety, friends. Welcome to the 21st century. So when you're starting to job hunt, the very first thing you want to do before looking at the sites or looking at jobs is determining what's important to you for your next job. I typically recommend putting yourself together a hierarchical list of what's important. Most common things you put on that list are pay, full-time versus part-time, what the hours are going to look like, where the location is, especially if you have to commute, the company's name or reputation, your job title, job description, and everything along those lines. You'll need to consider what's most important to you because that's what you're going to base your job hunt off of. You don't want to be looking at jobs that sound interesting but don't have the pay you want, especially if pay is most important for you. But also at the same time, you'll want to consider what you're willing to sacrifice to get that first priority. So if pay is important to you, if you're like me and you have student loans to pay off, you don't want to find a job that sounds perfect until you don't like how much you're going to get paid. So if you're willing to sacrifice things like the commute or the company or the location to get that higher pay, figure out what you need, what you're feeling, and then base it all off from there. Now, buyer beware. As you're going through various job posting sites, there are a lot that do charge you either to just browse or to have access to additional resources. If you're looking for a basic front of the line job, you've got minimal to no experience, it is not typically worth it for those job sites that make you pay because there's never a guarantee you're going to get a job off of that. And there's never going to be a guarantee that however much you're putting down to that site is going to reward you with that job. Now, if you're looking for something rather competitive, kind of upper level management jobs, that's a great resource to have because it's a little bit more elite, which means less people are going to be looking there and more higher end companies are going to be posting there. If you do want access to the resources that those job sites are providing for the extra charge, it's at your discretion whether or not it's worth it. If you're like me and you recently graduated from college, a lot of colleges have young alumni resources in the career section where they'll help you prepare for an interview or put together a resume or anything along those lines. So it's not worth the extra charge to do something I could get free from my college. But if you're no longer in college and it's been a good few years or so since you graduated, and you haven't had an opportunity to put together a resume or interview recently, sometimes having access to those through job hunting sites is good because it's going to be a lot cheaper than going to a professional company who helps you prepare things like interviews and resumes. So it's all based upon what you're needing, where you feel your needs are at, and what you're comfortable spending to potentially receive, because remember, nothing is guaranteed. So along with looking at the company's sites directly, looking at social media, hearing word of mouth from friends and family, there are job posting sites, and today I'm going to be telling you guys about some of those. My favorites and some of the most popular are going to be LinkedIn, Ziprecruiter, Monster, Simply Hired, Glassdoor, and believe it or not, LinkedIn. So give me just a moment. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. We're going to go through these together. I always hate when someone's presenting and they're like, can you guys see my screen? And they expect a response because you either can't see their video or you have to worry about unmuting and being like, yeah, I can hear it, and then mute again. So I'm going to say this. If you cannot see my screen, give me a signal. Awesome. I'm assuming everybody can see my screen, and we're just going to go with that. The very first thing I'm going to tell you guys today about is Indeed. This is my personal choice for a job hunting site, and you've probably heard of this site before. Whether or not you've actually job hunted, they have so many advertisements out there, and I truly believe that they're providing what they say they are. So just in general, very impressed with them. When you first arrive on Indeed, you got your choices of how to begin your search with a what or a where. So whichever one falls higher on your hierarchy we mentioned at the beginning, you put it in and you can start searching. What I love about Indeed is that it's very easy to use and it gives you a whole lot of options to categorize your search based off of. They recently added in the remote filter, which is very good, especially for us in the pandemic. So you can put in preference of if you want to be remote, how far from your location, and then you can look at everything from salary to type, location, and a whole lot of other really cool things that you have put in that hierarchical list of yours. So you'll see nice and easy on the left-hand side is going to be the list of all of the jobs they have, and you can sort that based upon relevance or date. And I really love about LinkedIn is that it has a whole lot of options just in that. They give you the company name, the company location, the job title. A lot of them also post the pay. They'll give you a really good description. Once you click on a job, you can see it pops up on the right-hand side. All of the information that the employer is going to give you with qualifications, descriptions, requirements, and a whole lot of information that you can base your decisions off of whether or not you want to apply there. Indeed does have a what they call a quick apply option. See if one of these will pop up. Yeah, quick apply option where you simply hit the apply now button and this little Q&A box will pop up. And you just put in some really simple info rather than having to write an entire resume or craft an entire cover letter. You pop this in and they submit an application for you and the company will get back to you. Indeed is very common. A lot of people know it, which means there's a lot of companies posting, but there's also a lot of competition. So you got to balance out which you prefer to have a lot of job options, but worry about a lot of people who are applying for those jobs. Indeed is just the job hunt. It doesn't provide you different resources to look at. It doesn't do resume help or anything along those lines, but it's really good if you're just looking for that job. Now, Ziprecruiter is a little less known, but it parallels a lot to Indeed. You can choose between the job title, the keyword, or the location and begin your search from there. Now, Ziprecruiter is geared a lot more to the small or medium-sized business. It does ask you if you're a human, I promise. We get to find bicycles. I'm very good at this, friends. But Ziprecruiter is a great place for smaller businesses if you don't want to worry about having to deal with a big business and everything that comes with that. You get a lot of these smaller, less heard of companies, which means there's a lot more opportunities for things you haven't heard of, for things that nobody's heard of, which gives you a great batch to choose from as you're going through the process. Very similar to Indeed, Ziprecruiter has a lot of options to filter out, whether it be location, salary, employment types, and even company names, just to figure out what you want, what you're looking for, and then again, using that hierarchical list to kind of narrow down what you're looking for. So if you want something in a specific location with a specific salary, you'll be able to put in those, what you're looking for, and then all these sites will change what jobs that they show you to make sure that it fits what you need. ZipRecruiter does also have that quick apply option where you click in and it fill in some basic info and then it'll apply you for that job. And then it is the company that reaches back out to you to tell you whether or not they want you. And then along with that, they also have their cute little pop-ups that show you, compensation, employment information, qualifications, and everything along those lines. Monster is a favorite not because I like the site, but because there's a really good joke that goes along with it. If you guys have ever watched The Office, there's, spoiler alert, a scene where there's one of the employees applying for a new job, and he accidentally goes on to Monsters, plural.com, and so just the computer, you hear the roaring of the monster coming out, and the other employee looks over, he goes, "It's Monster, singular." And that's just a funny bit there. Monster is a little bit different. I have only put in the fact that I'm in Florida, and it's already popped up a variety of jobs for me, even before I put in any additional information. But like the others, it gives you the what or the where search in the option. So once you do search, Monster does have significantly less options for filtering out jobs. It really just does it kind of by place, and you have to scroll down and look from there. They do what I like with with Indeed, where it pops up the job description right next to the original post, so you can scroll down and see everything right there, and then just hop over to the next job instead of worrying about having to go back and forth between different tabs. Monster is, again, another commonly used one, very popular. So you have a lot of job posting options. But then, of course, you also have the higher level of competition because people know about this site. Monster does have a quick apply and then a resume match option, where if you upload your resume to the site, they'll match you to jobs and have employers reach out to you if they think your resume matches what they're looking for. However, Monster is also pretty notorious for spam postings, so you want to keep that in mind as you're looking through different sites. Simply Hired is a lot less popular than some of these previous ones, but that's good. I like the fact that they also have the quick apply option. For some reason, they put me in Davenport, Iowa, but we're not going to penalize them for that. And then doing the search, they also have a lot of filtering options, much less typically than Indeed and ZipRecruiter, but they still allow you to look at things like salary, location, and job type, which is some of the things that you put in hierarchical importance when you put yourself that list together. It is very easy to navigate. It looks visually similar to Indeed, which I like. I know that I have found a job here, so a little bit biased towards that, but I think it's a pretty great site. It is less well known, which I said does decrease the amount of competition you have, but in some points it decreases the amount of jobs posted here, so it's the balancing act there as well. Now, Glassdoor is really fun. Glassdoor does require that you sign up prior to job searching, while none of these previous ones have required that of you. You do have to put an email and create a profile, but they have a really great variety of options to look from. They're very popular for employers. They do know that they have this ability. They have relationships with employers, so they can put together some really exciting opportunities, both in front of the line opportunities and also in higher level upper management. So this is a really great diverse site to be on. As you're looking through jobs, they have a lot of filtering options, quite a bit actually. I'm very impressed with them. And they're really easy to use, easy to navigate. and have a lot of options for you to put things together and search for your jobs. Now, Glassdoor does have a lot of information, but they really do limit the amount of free options that they provide. So you got to be careful on what you're clicking through, because sometimes they're going to ask you to pay to subscribe to another premium version of their site to give you access to certain things. Last one I'm going to tell you, believe it or not, is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, on top of being a social media site, is also a job hunting site, which makes sense because LinkedIn is a very business-oriented site, and therefore there are going to be jobs there. LinkedIn is a lot lesser known with kids my age, not to make you guys sound old, but it's not very popular, which means one of two things. It means not a lot of people are applying for jobs there, which is really good, but it also means that not a lot of employers are putting jobs on there because they understand that kids nowadays aren't really interested in using this site. However, I cannot stress the importance of having a LinkedIn. It is so important for networking opportunities, especially in the world we're living in today, with a mix of the global pandemic and the amount of technology. I can connect to someone on the other side of the world who is posting a remote job because I have access to it on LinkedIn, and that's incredibly important to have, and I just cannot stress that enough. When you're doing a search in LinkedIn, very similar to the other job sites, it gives you a lot of options to filter out jobs, to look at the different availabilities. You can put in your experience level, the company type, anything along those lines. And at the same time, they have an easy apply option. LinkedIn, very similar to Glassdoor, has a requirement that you sign up before you job hunt. But like I said, I can't stress this enough. It's so important to have a LinkedIn profile. And once you put together your profile, you have your entire resume listed there already. So bada bing, bada boom, you've already got your resume ready to go. You just say, I like this job, and it easy applies for you. All right, now that we've done a little quick look through all of the job sites, I've just talked your ears off. I wanted to see very quickly if you guys had any questions, just specifically regarding these different job sites, or just preparing yourself to look at different jobs. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth in looking at job descriptions and how to put job applications in, but I wanted to see if there were any preliminary questions. So I'm going to stop for a minute and then open it up to anybody with questions. Yeah, Oscar.
So, Rachel, which site did you use and had success with personally? Was it Indeed primarily, or?
So funny, I realized this just this morning, but I told you guys about 3 different places to hear jobs: social media, company website, and job posting websites. I have had 3 jobs since I moved here to Florida, and I got each of them through one of those ways. The job that I did find on the job posting site was through Simply Hired, and I guess I should go back to that one because that's the one I had success with. But for some reason, I really like Indeed. I could be a little bit biased. There's a lot of Disney jobs, like Disney Springs jobs, that ends up getting posted there. And I think that's primarily the draw for me, is that anytime I can like type in Disney Springs to the search bar, and they'll be like, Ron Johns. I'm like, yeah, I'm applying for Ron Johns, even though I don't surf and I know nothing about the beach and stuff because I grew up in the mountains. But I've always found myself drawn back to Indeed despite having success on Simply Hired. And again, I'm going to stress the importance of LinkedIn for anybody who's about my age and watching this and doesn't have a LinkedIn profile. But it's just so important for communication and getting opportunities that you won't have anywhere else.
Thank you.
Rachel, I have a question. By having looked at all these different job sites, and you mentioned also social media, and you have to be very careful to see if those are legit companies or trustworthy, as you said. When you go through these job sites like LinkedIn, Ziprecruiter, Indeed, Monster, Glassdoor, I believe they kind of filter it a little bit so that you're much more secure that those are real companies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so these job sites are practically actual companies in themselves. They're not just a website that someone put up online and said, go ahead and use it. These are companies with employees and are, a job within themselves. And so there are a lot of people who are on the back end that are looking at these posts and are trying to read through it and determine that if this is a real company, if they want this kind of promotion on their site, and just trying to weave out what's good and what's bad. Now, a lot of this is human done, some of it's computer done, and none of it is absolutely perfect. So as you're going through these jobs, you always want to take a look and think critically. Say, does this look like a real job? If I Google search the company name, will it pop up and be something real? So you don't just willy-nilly apply for things just because.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And then social media, when you mentioned, how do you find a job in social media? See, I'm old school.
Yeah, no, that's okay. This social media job hunting is very newfangled, and it's incredibly interesting to watch the development of because it's very new. A lot of companies are able to put forward what's called a sponsored post, and what that means is that they have paid the social media site money to show a specific post to a specific demographic of people. So if they're looking for, unemployed 20-year-olds who have some sort of college, based upon my profile that I have that social media site, as I'm scrolling through all of the posts, I'll see the sponsored post pop up in between two regular posts, and it'll give the company name, the sponsor, and whatever picture or writing that they have there. And a lot of social media sites, they do try to filter sponsored content. Again, they have a person or a robot look at whatever posts the person is trying to sell to determine whether or not it's legit. But again, no person, no computer is absolutely perfect to catch those kind of things. And you may get spam sponsored content for you, like not job related, but my fiance got a free pair of AirPods, just paying shipping, but they were very knockoff AirPods. And it was a sponsored post that he was given. So you got to think about these kind of things before you hit the accept button or whatever.
Thank you. I have never seen the job sites in social media. I guess I'm not their demographic.
I mean, if you're employed, I don't think they're going to try to send employment to you. But
that's true.
It just all depends on what they decide they want to put out. And I could do a whole nother speech about marketing in the digital era. I did a lot of that with my college degree, took a few classes on that. So that might be something I do later for you guys. Yeah, Thomas?
Yeah, to kind of add on to that with the social media, even like Facebook has posting through their marketplace. Mm-hmm. And so you can find jobs that way too. But again, you may be a little bit more cautious than using the other site. What I wanted to ask is, for being that we're in the 21st century, there's still people that are very technology deficient or have a little bit of, what would you suggest would be the best way to go about somebody trying to apply to a job that isn't very tech savvy?
Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of companies that still do direct applications. You can still, for the most part, go into stores and shops and companies and say, I'd like to apply for a job. A lot of them will still have paper options for you to fill out and go through that process. But for someone who, doesn't understand all this, has problems with one of this, I think the best option for them is to have a narrow path and to just walk around that. So instead of having 5 or 6 job sites that you're going through every day and trying to put in applications for, picking one that you believe has what you need, whether it be the variety of jobs, the preference of employers, and just finding one job site that you are able to understand, one that you believe that you're able to learn and figure out how to apply on, and just putting your focus onto that job site. Some of them, like LinkedIn or Indeed, have that easy application option. So you only have to fill out your contact info and then attach your resume, and that's all you need to do for the application. So you just type in a few keys, you attach your document, and you hit submit. And I really think that's a skill that anybody of any skill level can learn. And just makes it really easy to just have this like one single track, one thing you're good at, but it still gives you a variety of options to look at and apply for various jobs. If that's not something that's easy for you or something that you feel like you're comfortable doing, just going to the companies or going onto the company's websites can be helpful. If you know what companies you like, and you can check out what they're applying for. A lot of companies will have a career option on their websites. Sorry, guys. And you can easily click on and fill out applications there. Most of those websites, their applications are very similar to ones that you would fill out on paper. They just ask like basic information, previous job, previous education, everything along those lines. And those are typically pretty easy to fill out and submit as well. All right, are we feeling pretty decent about looking at these various job sites? This will be recorded for you guys, and we can always send out this for you to rewatch should it ever become relevant for you. But if we're feeling pretty good about the sites, I'm going to move on to this section that I call determining your worth. So as you're going through and you're applying for jobs, you cannot apply for every job. Sorry guys, that's not how it works. You really, to best put your time and effort and energy into the job hunt, are going to want to figure out which jobs are good for you. And to do that, you have to figure out what you're worth. If you have no job experience, you have never worked a day in your life, you have literally only done school and sleep, figuring out how much you're worth is relatively difficult to do. But I like to think of it in a very simple way, especially if you put pay on the top of your hierarchy of needs that I mentioned earlier. You're going to want to figure out how much the job is going to pay you, but you're also going to want to figure out how much pay you need to make it day to day. I know what I like to do is I like to add up all of my expenses, rent, bills, insurance, debt payments, anything along those lines, and figure out what my basic monthly expenses are. Things like shopping or eating out or anything along those lines are going to be considered additional luxuries, not included on my basic monthly needs. So once I have that basic monthly needs, I need to take into account how much I need to be paid per month to meet those needs. If you're looking at a part-time job, most of the time those will get you about 15 to 20 hours a week, could be more. If you're looking at a full-time job, most of the time they're going to get you 35 to 40 hours a week. So if you've got about $1,000 in monthly expenses, that means a part-time job needs to pay you about $16 an hour, and a full-time job needs about $6 an hour. I know that it is incredibly impossible to find a part-time job paying any more than about $13 an hour, especially right now, and that full-time jobs are equally as scarce. But once you've got that basic idea of where you should be looking to cover your expenses, that's going to be the most important thing that you think of, and then you can continue down with the hierarchy needs of location, description, hours, and anything along those lines. If you do know what you're worth, what you want to do is build off of what you already have. So look at your pay from your last job and you're trying to find something that's equal or above. Or you can do the little trade-off and say, okay, I'm going to go a little bit lower with my pay, but I'm going to get a lot more benefits. So it's going to even out. And you're always going to want to continue to shoot upwards. Again, very hard to do in the middle of a global pandemic. But keep in mind that you want to be moving upwards consistently. You want to be sure that you have the options to get promoted with your careers. You want to have the opportunity to gain skills that you will be able to use in future jobs. And you don't want to remain stagnant, because I can tell you the worst thing you can do when you're out of college is to just bounce between front-of-the-line jobs that you really don't like or have no opportunities in. So always shoot for the stars. Word of advice for all of my friends who are job applying right now: remember to look at the physical location. First job I had that I got right when I moved to Florida was about a 45-minute-hour drive from my apartment, and I had to do that almost every morning to get there at 9 a.m., which was Not fun for me to do, but it was a job at the time, so I took it. But as we're now starting to return to a little bit more of normalcy, definitely take a look into that location. Think about what your commute would be like. Are you going in or out of Orlando in the morning? I recommend going out of Orlando in the morning. I definitely appreciate not having to deal with rush hour traffic. Make sure you know the roads you'll be taking. Are these major roads or dingy little side roads where there's incidents? And then take a look at the location that you're going to be working in. I am not proud to admit this, but when I first moved down to Florida, I interviewed for a job in a very sketchy area of Kissimmee. And I texted my now fiance and I said, "This is my location where I'm going to interview. If I do not contact you in an hour, please send help." Clearly I'm fine, but know where you're going, because that is incredibly important to consider, not just in a safety perspective, but also in a day-to-day perspective. If you're going somewhere that's very busy, a lot of traffic, it might not be a lot of fun to have to get to work on a daily basis. So just keeping that in mind. When you're looking at companies, whether it be on social media, heard from a friend, or on a job posting site, if you've never heard of them, there's a lot of research you can do to determine their validity. For instance, Google. Google is wonderful, or whatever social media or search engine you use. I always recommend opening up an incognito browser so that the search engine doesn't see your history, doesn't send you anything biased. Open up that incognito browser and then type in the name of the company you're looking for. It'll give you the first thing that you're going to see is an unbiased representation of the company. Typically, it's going to be their website, their social medias, something like Google reviews or Yelp, and that'll give you a lot of unbiased information to help you make your decision. I also like that if a company has a Better Business Bureau profile, to look at those. If you don't know anything about the Better Business Bureau, just know that it is a very, very good quality, very relevant, very important place to search up companies and their reputation, because there is extremely high standards that go with being accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Try saying that 5 times fast. And it's a very good place to get a really good idea of what a company is in determining legitimacy and safety. I said that 2 many times fast and now I'm like parched. And then also, while you're doing that incognito search, look at the Google and the Yelp reviews, or any other sort of review site that comes up, because those are going to be very important as well. It's going to show you predominantly the customer experience, but the customer experience says a lot about the employee experience. So if the customers aren't happy, it's probably a bad business, and it's probably not somewhere that you want to be working. Now, you always have to think critically when reading through these. If you're looking at the bad reviews, is it legitimately a chain of people who had a bad experience with this company? Or is it just a handful of people who are really angry and decided to take it out on that company because something went wrong, Karen? And then, of course, when you're looking at the more positive reviews, you got to look at it and say, okay, are these people who are really happy with the product or service? Or are these people who are getting paid to say nice things? Because as much as government and regulations try not to allow that, it happens. And I'm sorry to tell you that positive reviews can be faked or bought or anything along those lines. So the best thing you can do, read through it and then notice not only what's said, but what's unsaid in those reviews. Now, like I said before, you cannot just willy-nilly go apply for every single job, because as amazing that would be, it would take up way too much of your own time, and it takes up the company's time too. And you don't want to bug a company to the point where they're like, yeah, we don't want her, just get rid of her kind of thing. So what you're going to want to do is be able to determine your level of skills to figure out around what jobs you should be applying for. Most front-of-the-line starter jobs ask for 3 basic skills: being able to communicate effectively with not only the customers but your coworkers, basic software skills, I'm like Microsoft, Outlook, email, everything along those lines, and that you're able to represent the company professionally. If you're able to display those things either through the experience on your resume or what you perform in your interview, you're all set and basically have a lot of options when applying for jobs. Now, when you're looking at jobs, you always have to take the skills required and the qualifications into consideration. Because while there's some things you may be able to do, there may be things that you don't want to do on a daily basis. For instance, if you have phone anxiety, you might not want to apply for a receptionist position, even though you do you fit the description, you feel like you're qualified for it. You're going to have to be picking up calls on a daily basis, on an almost consistent basis. And if that's something you don't feel you can do well or get major anxiety over, it's probably not the job for you. So really thinking about what they're asking of you and if that's something that you can perform on a daily basis. Now, there's a lot of positions, and I'm going to talk to you guys with examples in a few moments, but there's a lot of positions that'll have qualifications that you meet and you're like checking them off as you're going down. You're like, I feel good about this job. I think I can do it. And then you get to that very last one and you realize, I have no experience doing that. Pause. Take a breath. You still may be able to qualify for that job, unless the job description says specifically required experience. Don't feel that you have to have that skill or that experience, because sometimes it's just a loose ask. Sometimes with a combination of your education and previous experience, you can show the employers that you're able to learn how to or have the basic skills to be able to do that opportunity. But then there's some that you might not be able to learn. For instance, if you've never worked in coding before and the job asks for Python, I just do not recommend it, because that is a very technical skill that takes formal education and training to acquire. We're going to pop up the share screen once more, and I'm going to show you guys examples of this through the jobs. So looking right here at this top one is a smoothie cafe crew member, which basically means you make the smoothies. Qualifications and job descriptions are pretty simple, pretty easy. Interact with people, deliver hospitality, and meet standards. The basic three I just told you guys about. And so looking at those are pretty easy for the average person or me to meet. And that's a job that I feel I would be qualified to apply for without having to worry about not meeting any of the qualifications. Do I think it would be fun of a job? No, not really, but to each their own. I have personally never worked housekeeping. Oh, and I just realized that this might be, nope, it's in English, we're fine. I have never worked in housekeeping before, so I don't have any background working housekeeping. However, there's a lot of things that they have listed here that while I don't have exact experience doing, like replenishing linen and guest amenities, I've never really done that. But I have experience stocking shelves in merchandise, which, while it's not the exact same thing, is a skill that transfers over and shows that I have the basic ability to do and a further ability to learn. So a lot of applying for jobs is thinking critically and trying to understand what everything means and figure out what the company is really saying and reading between the lines. It's a lot of fun. It's a very exhausting game, but it's all going to be worth it once you do get that job. Now, unfortunately, a lot of entry-level jobs are no longer considered entry-level in this day and age. They do ask for 3 to 5 years of experience and everything along those lines. But you got to remember that, especially right now with the pandemic going on, a lot of companies are more willing to be flexible to fill the jobs that they need. I have no experience in insurance. I barely know anything. I hold insurance, and that's all I know that I know. My dad was coaching me through how to get insurance on my car for the first time this past year. He's like, oh yeah, we want to get you like a 10-20-10. I'm like, what's that? And I didn't ask him. I just went with it and I called the insurance. I'm like, yeah, I'd like a quote. 10-20-10. What's that look like? And I just kind of went with it. But Geico, for me, is being so willing to help me get licensed in the state of Florida to sell insurance that even with no background, even with no proof that I know anything about insurance, they did offer me the job because I have the education to prove that I can learn something. and I have the experience to prove that I can provide great customer service. So everything is up in the air right now and nobody knows what's going on. But I hope that all this advice was really good to help get you guys started on the path of looking for a job should you find yourself there. If you are interested in learning about putting together a resume and a cover letter, we covered that a couple weeks back. And then George or Oscar, I can't remember, one of them was kind enough to film it. We've got it out on YouTube and we're happy to link it to you guys. And we do have a few more of these seminars coming out. The next one we have will announce the date and the information shortly. But it is going to be an opportunity to learn about presenting yourself in the interview. We're going to go over what you need to prepare to go to an interview, what you should wear, what you should carry, how you should appear for an interview. And then we're also going to give you guys the option to try out real job interview questions so you can test the waters and figure out what interviewing is like. I am going to open the floor now to a little Q&A time if you have any questions to finish. And if you guys do want to hang on, ask me more personal questions, or just get information from the day, I am here for y'all.
Rachel, of course, I always have questions.
It's good.
You mentioned incognito browser. How do you do that?
Yeah, it depends on what browser you're going to use. I'm going to pop onto share screen again so I can show you guys. Oh, wait, that one's in incognito. That's going to help. All right, so I'm on our Toastmasters page, pretty easy. Can you see my cursor making circles? All right. So you're going to, typically it's going to go up these 3 dots right here. Sometimes it just depends on what browser you're using, where along the top this is. But it's going to be right along the top, and it's going to give you a variety of options to select from. That's typically where you open a new tab, a new window, and then right beneath that is going to be new incognito. So once you pop that open, screen is typically going to be a darker color. It's going to show you that you're not normally on your browser. And when I type in something, well, that's not working out very well, but like.
And you're using Chrome, I guess.
I'm using Chrome, yeah. But when
from those 3 dots.
It's right here. But when you type in something into the search bar, it typically doesn't give you like a normal. I've got a few things I've done incognito, so it's saved those. But it typically doesn't give you things that you've gone to before. It typically doesn't give you like recommendations of what you should type in. So if I just type in something pretty normal into Google, instead of giving me the first thing I might see because I've searched dog before and it's got sites for me, it's just giving me what the Google wants to show me first, which is Wikipedia and then some trending topics. And just a little bit of secrecy in that. Saw your hand go up, Thomas.
Well, I was going to add too that if it's not under the incognito, some of the companies will call it in private browsing. There are some other different options, and so it just really depends on what browser you're using.
Yeah, thank you. That's important.
Since let me ask another question. There are also like agencies out there. Some of them are good for helping jobs. Some of them you do have to pay for. Would you say using an agency would be better than trying to do stuff directly yourself online, or?
I think that comes down to where you are in your career and in your personal life. So for someone like me who is fresh out of college, who has minimal level of experience, and I'm just kind of looking for a job to get me through life, being able to do this for free on my own time, not having to worry about paying or deadlines, is a really good option for someone at my age, my experience, or below, because you're trying to get experience, you're trying to get opportunities, you're trying to learn about existing in the real world. For someone who's got a lot of experience on their hands, who was just not satisfied in their career, deciding to move on, or need connections to get to something that they don't have, being able to have access to those agencies, and of course, thoroughly researching those agencies, is really good because they stay up to date on trends, they develop connections with employers, and they're able to provide for you things that you can't do for yourself. So if it's good investment for you financially and time, and you do believe that you're going to get out of it more than you're putting into it, absolutely. I definitely considered using one of those agencies when I was job hunting because I was just sick and tired of looking at those job sites. But I decided that this is something that I'm young enough, I can find on my own. I don't have experience or the financials to really get myself where I needed with those job sites, and that I was doing this for myself kind of thing. Yes, Oscar.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm very curious. What are your long range goals? And how do you get that to fit into this path that you're on? I know we're all in kind of a shaky business environment, but I don't think anybody should ever give up on their dream. And I work in a place where the sign when you enter says, "Where dreams come true." Is there any way? What is your dream, and how do you keep that alive during this journey that might be bumpy and maybe off track?
Dreams change over time, you guys. When I was in elementary school, I wanted to be a postal worker so I could play with the flags on the mailboxes. As I hit middle school, I wanted to be a professional ballerina because I studied that. When I started high school, I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I learned what the board exam was, and I decided, no, I'm not going to be a lawyer. That's too much stress. And then I hit college, and I started to do more research about the business behind Disney because I loved it as a guest, but I never did research on it. And then I did this Disney college program, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is where I want to be. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, I'm getting a business degree. I want to be CEO of Disney. And that is quite the dream to have, you guys, because that's an intense job to have. And it's an intense job to apply for. And just looking at all the past CEOs and doing research on them there was so much to look at and to be able to just digest. And so while that's still like the big fantasy dream is to be some sort of big management in Disney because I love the company and I want to be able to share magic with people on a daily basis, I've also had to accept the fact that Disney is probably not going to be hiring the same way that they did pre-pandemic, at least for a little while, and that I'm probably going to have to set up my career to go in a different direction than I originally hoped before everything happened. So right now, I feel like I've switched my dream to just reaching some sort of management or experience that I could eventually bring back to Disney because I do hope for that to be my end goal company. Again, everything is so incredibly up in the air with the pandemic, but I do know that after talking to my managers of this new job, I have a lot of opportunities for upward momentum and that my current company loves to promote from within. So that makes me very excited about my job and my growth opportunities.
Good. Well, I do believe that we can support each other in our dreams, and I think that's a big part of what I feel this is, that we all come together and help each other. Now, it looks like I just want to make you aware of 5 minutes left. So we'll keep in that time frame. Is that right, Rachel? And throw out some more questions. We got 5 more minutes before we wrap it up.
Yeah. So if anyone has any more questions, I'll stay here. Yeah, George.
I got an observation because I was an employer that ran an employment agency. But I had people come to me because, well, they had no experience. But I was able to put them to work, and they gained that experience through the agency. But all of a sudden, they developed a skill. They might have been just a laborer at first, and then they became the labor foreman, and then they'd end up being a carpenter. And so we had people just move right on up just by acquiring the skill through one of those agencies. And if someone came to me, I remember I had a journeyman electrician come to me. He was so easy to put to work. He already had the skill. So if you have a skill and you go to an agency, you can easily be placed almost anywhere you need to go. So that's really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Agencies like that, trade schools, and even working in government and the public sector are severely underappreciated, especially as you're going through the job hunt. So, not just thinking about what private companies can I work for, but like what trade opportunities you might have if you're not interested in college and you'd rather just be able to work with your hands or anything along those lines to go out of the box and try something new.
I had people come to me and didn't want to work for one place because they wanted a variety in their work. So they almost never knew what they were going to get from day to day, but that's what they liked. And so, okay, we'll play that game too.
Yeah, absolutely. We got 3 minutes. If anyone has any more questions, feel free to ask them now. I saw Thomas.
You mentioned not to apply for every job. Obviously, you'd overwhelm yourself. Would there be a good number to try to keep in mind, or a range that you should suggest to people?
I made a list of every single job I applied for as I was going through this application process and where I was in the process so I could keep things in line. And I easily applied for 100 or so jobs in the past year, give or take. So it's not necessarily a numerical number of a limit. It's where you feel you can handle yourself a limit. If you feel like you see these, 5 or 10 jobs today that you want to apply for, that you would love to accept if given the opportunity, put your effort into those jobs. If you see 2 or 3 the next day, that's all you see, go ahead, put in for those. If you see nothing the next day, then that's just what happens. You see nothing that day. So it's really just about the opportunities you have presented in front of you. And you really want to think critically about the jobs you are applying for. If you do get an offer, do you truly think you'll take it? If you go into the interview, do you think you'll enjoy the interview? And just things along those lines to gauge where you're comfortable and where you're feeling.
One last, well, for me, a question is that, I've often thought of the reverse in thinking about you interviewing them, coming from that perspective of you're so valuable that they've got to convince you that they need to hire you. You flip the roles on them. And I think that, you really have to think about that and listen to them and maybe turn it around and ask, think about the questions to ask. Now, would you say that would be an approach that you use, that you created and believed in yourself so much because you have a strong background? So how would you help somebody else or encourage to look at themselves and really develop their own belief structure so that they could be sold? Like, hey, I'm the most valuable. Everybody wants me.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you make an amazing point there. The interview is just as much about the company getting to know the person as the person getting to know the company. We did just hit 12 o'clock, so if you guys have to leave, don't feel bad about jumping out as I finish answering this. But funny story for you guys. I applied for this job I have now because I heard it from a friend of a friend. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll put in the application. It'll be worth it. I went through the first interview and I didn't really like it. But they liked me, and so they put me on to the next interview. And in my brain, I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to take this job. But if they want to interview me, I'll take that practice. Practice is good, so I'll take it. And then for that second interview, I sat down with who is now my boss. And just everything she told me was amazing. And I loved working with her and listening to her and having the conversation with her, and ended up taking the job on the spot. So it's a lot about giving the company a chance while giving yourself a chance. And then in terms of building someone up, a lot of it is just your confidence in yourself. This world is absolutely insane right now. None of us probably feel qualified to be in the positions that we are or we're going for. But a lot of it is understanding who you are, where you feel comfortable, and knowing where you want to go in your life. Being able to have ambitions and wanting something for the future, because the future is coming fast. So you got to be thinking about what's happening now and how can I prepare myself for my next steps and continuing to grow from there.